Hello, everyone. This is Political Chit Chat, and I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. Today's honored guest is DJ Alf, strict activist. Thank you, DJ Alf, for being here today. For the audience that may not know who you are, would you mind giving a little bit about your background?
Sure, okay. I actually build myself as a street activist because that's a difference from an armchair activist where people, get their news and information from mainstream media or, talking points. I actually work with the actual communities that I talk about. So I'm actually much more, knowledgeable about the issues that are affecting them.
Now, these issues that are affecting the individuals, what are they?
Okay, so the thing is that, I'm actually, my own personal activism has to do with anti-war activism because of the things that I faced growing up. A lot of people don't think that Asian Americans have suffered. They will acknowledge that, black people, slavery has, a lot of effects with poverty and, they're incarcerated at much higher rates than, other groups. Well, the fact of the matter is that the Korean War happened very recently, and how many times do you think my mother was raped? I mean, the intense violence that affected my community, that violence was revisited upon me, and I ended up running away from home at the age of 16 and living on the streets. So when we take a look at the, one thing that I realized was that the activism around, the issues that personally impacted me, I was given no voice, and other people who are war victims have no voice. Even white war victims. We look at Russia, Ukraine. Are you hearing from any Russian Americans or Ukrainian Americans about what's going on in Russia, Ukraine? No, it's like some pundit, some news media person. You don't get to hear from the actual communities that have been impacted. So, I really help those communities. I really focus on working with, because I know that the average American does not understand or cannot really acknowledge the issues that I've gone through because they haven't learned about it. They think they know about my issues. They have no idea. So I work with other communities that have been, habitually left behind, such as the disabled, people that have been incarcerated, people that have been in public housing. And if you take a look, I was homeless at the age 16 because of the extreme violence that I had to grow up with. And a lot of my cousins, just so you know, have also been hugely impacted. A lot of them have a lot of issues which is not talked about. So I know it's not just me. I know it's my whole community has been impacted. And, that's really why being homeless, you take a look who's in the homeless community, that's going to be disabled, people formerly incarcerated.
Yep.
That's really my community. I really wish I had more Asian Americans that I was working with, but a lot of them are bought off and encouraged not to work with me. So it's quite tragic, but I have a lot of accomplishments that I'm very proud of. And I don't want to take too long, but that's the essence of my activism.
Look, this is the right moment to say it because in a lot of situations, we're not given this opportunity to be so not only blunt and personal. And you've set a platform on your network to get people to be so openly, but you don't get to talk that often on these type of subjects and so openly. But you always share a lot, which I appreciate. Some of these things I knew about you, some of these things I didn't know, and I appreciate you sharing it. Now, as an activist and hitting these topics, they're not the flavor of the month, and they're not, the sound bites that the major networks are looking for. So independent media is something that we use as advocates to push our, not, and I don't want to be negative because this is what they use against us, our agenda forward. No, it's not our agendas, it's our struggles that we're trying to push out there. And that being said, where these particular subject matters have hit, they have backlashes on it. And you've faced those head on. Would you mind going into some of those problems that you faced?
Absolutely. So the thing is that a lot of the activism that you see on the TV or on the news is actually there's one set of millionaires on one side and there's another set of millionaires on the other side. But the actual people who are impacted, they are silenced and no one really is actually talking to them or listening to them. Once again, with the disabled community, for instance, the Helen Keller Institute, which my partner Mark Saffman has been working with, they've never had a deaf-blind person actually leading their organization. So it's kind of insulting, right? And this is true, once again, for the anti-war activism. So the thing is that we need authentic representation. And once again, even in the independent media space, we take a look at, like, for example, Jimmy Dore, we take a look at Savvy Savs or Brianna Joy Gray, Breaking Points. A lot of people look at these shows and think they're popular, but you're going to notice that they only talk to and about each other. They don't really talk about grassroots activists that are actually doing work within the community. And if you want to ask yourself, who are they actually helping? Just to get back to my accomplishment, I'm working with the longest wrongfully incarcerated men in New York State history, Otis Johnson, Reverend Keith Gadsden. With Mark Zafton, we actually have laws that were introduced in both state legislators to try to increase funding for something called the Co-Navigator Program for the deaf, blind, and we got the New York State Disabilities Coordinator reinstated after it was removed by Andrew Cuomo, which was originally put in place by his father, Mario Cuomo, right? So we have a lot of, we're impacting the community, we're doing real things, but if you look at Brianna Joy Gray, if you look at Jimmy Dore, they're not actually fighting for legislation, they're not actually touching poor people. They're talking to other celebrities or party leaders. So thanks again.
A very small circle
Yeah.
of individuals, which, I'm not trying to show shade or anything, but once again, that is the right message trying to get out, getting out there, are the people that are doing that hard work getting out there.
Yeah, and you know what? I get it. They're not necessarily wrong to do that because they're not activists. They are looking for a job where they can actually max out their viewership and things like that, and they have different set of priorities and goals, and that's okay. But we need the people that are people like yourselves to not buy it. You can. There's nothing wrong with watching them, but you need to diversify your sources. You need to say, you know what, recognize the truth of what's going on there, and say, if you really care about those communities, you need to actually start, asking yourself some real questions, which they will never discuss or acknowledge.
So, what are some of those topics that they're not hitting that you want people to hit more?
Okay. So it's very easy for a lot of people to say things like, I don't get involved in electoral politics or things like that, right? But these things are actually deeply impacting the communities. And if they don't have an actual alternative solution, right, to actually take care of the problems, they just want to wipe their hands and walk away. That's not a real solution. People's lives are being impacted right now by these very crucial, things going on. So one of my projects that's really front and center of my work is something called Rep My Block, where I actually encourage people to run for county committee. I have a newsletter, and my latest newsletter talks about running for county committee and the importance of that. County committee is, the most important things and the truest things related to power will not be openly talked about because people cannot expose their most vulnerable points to the public, right? So the thing is that county committee controls the judges. A lot of people care about like who's being voted for president, who's getting voted for legislator, but in the end, really, judges have a large amount of control and are less able to be controlled by party leadership. So this is a huge issue, and there's also a lot of people that are running for office, including elected officials. Even the current mayor right now, he was shut off from getting public matching funds, right? Who's running the BOE? Who's determining which machines are being used and the rules under which votes take place? This is being controlled by the county and state committee of whatever party's in control in your state. So,
you bring up a tremendous amount of topics. For the county leadership, for those that don't know, they pretty much control who's going to be on the ballot for the elected officials. So that's, legislative officials. That's an important process right there. You mentioned the Rep My Block, Theo Chio, the founder. It's a database for information on, individuals so that you know where to get funding from, where to get your signatures from, where to get your votes from, in general. And the judges, when it comes to that part, it's really one-sided in New York City. The judges, you only see one side filled up with no competition, and they may all use the same consultant on top of that. It's something to look into.
There's no real discussion about how these judges are selected, or you just go show up at the ballot, and all of a sudden there's a name there, and you can vote with the party line or not. You don't really know who these people are. Once again, I said Rep My Block is front and center. And I'm not saying that you should believe in anybody 100%, right? No one can share all your priorities and positions. But what I like about Rep My Block, because there's other tools out there like Nation Builder, right, Van, things like that. But Rep My Block is open source. You can actually run it on your own server, right? You can inject your own voter database information and run it independently. You're not really forced to use or have someone else be able to maybe dip into your information. Even if you store it on Google Cloud, stuff like that, we know that a lot of times, Google's working with other parties or advertisers, and they're not really necessarily keeping your data secure. So you could run this software on any program, even an independent server that you man yourself. And once again, a real friend, right? I'm not going to tell you to believe in me, right? I'm going to empower you. So a lot of people think activism is a protest on the street. I'm going to tell you right now, you go to a protest and you go home, that's where the movement dies. The fact of the matter is that activism must continue, and what's really they're hoping to affect is the voters. And maybe 1 in 10 people vote. Anybody who's really knowledgeable in the game of activism will not waste their time, right, spending talking to 90% of the people who don't vote. They're going to concentrate their efforts, but a lot of times the protests are used as photo ops or to use as recruitment tools. So, a lot of people just don't really know what activism really is, sadly.
You're hitting some good points right there.
Thank you.
I just to throw in some, my 2 cents regarding these votes. In every aspect, at certain levels, it gets political. Even the nonprofit world at some point gets political. Guess who gives you your grants? Most elected officials. If you want to stay in power or stay active and continue your business, guess who you need? You need their support. So it's a hard thing to battle, and once again the Rabbi Block, it's Theo Chio, I believe is the founder of it, and what's the alternative? We have apps coming out every month, and who knows where this coming from, where they're taking their information, who they're giving it to.
Actually, if I could just mention
go
quick,
ahead,
you might know who I'm talking about. I don't know if you know, but I actually work with some candidates here in New York City, and some of the apps, right, are actually in the Chinese language. And I'm not saying, and there's actually a lot of infighting in the Chinese community where they're all calling each other CCP, things like that. It's hard for me to know exactly what's going on, but it's scary sometimes. People just have a consumerist mentality where they just take something that's convenient for them now without really asking who's controlling this data, right? Is it Google who's managing, right, which videos I see, right, or which candidates I hear about? Yeah. So these apps, once again, you got to be very careful about what you're working with. I know that I think Nation Builder charges like what, $10,000-$20,000.
That part I don't know, but
they charge a lot of money. Yeah.
But it's not cheap. None of these programs are cheap.
Rep My Block is available on GitHub. It's open source and it's free for the public. And once again, you can run it on your own servers. You can't trust anybody in this game. But I have to give props to something that really gives you the control.
Now you mentioned the percentage. I know for a fact because I recently did a piece on this. But let's say the last 2 mayoral cycles for voting, they were under 25%. In New York City, less than 25% of individuals voted. How do we fight that? Those are things where, I try to keep motivated. Like even this show right here is to give, independent media for candidates, activists, community members to get their voices heard outside, because it's, major media really isn't helping us out. I know of many candidates that can't get on. There are even local networks. I'm very fortunate that, my platform, I have a veteran background, which nonprofit work has given me ample national attention. And, my political aspects, luckily, once again, since I have a strong, solid local foundation, has given me international. But at the national level, if I wanted to, I can get like maybe Italy to do an interview on me, but I can't get, News 12.
I've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of the not-for-profits down here, even though the not-for-profits by law are not supposed to be engaged in electoral politics, they're often responsible for the contract. So how can they not be? And these not-for-profits will give media awards to the news channels, and the public elected official will be there. And
The same 5 people get
yeah.
the award, are invited to speak, or is everybody else, huh?
So now they see you as a competition instead of as an ally. And if you're not, look, I get it from their point of view too, and I've been a boss too, right? The fact of the matter is they got other problems, things going, just like yourself, right? You yourself have other things going on, your work, your family, your responsibilities, and by the time you can get to politics, you feel burned out. You can't really, you end up just saying, you know what, I'm just going to vote for this guy. He seems like a likable person. We need really you to be more politically engaged. And another thing is that they try to sell you solutions rather than teach you to empower yourself. So I get it, right? I think that so few people vote because they don't really believe that they're going to make a difference. But that's why I encourage people to run for county committee and to really start to learn the process, to start to network and start to realign the values of our society. The fact of the matter is that back during the Renaissance, people used to really look up to scientists and say, these people are doing wonderful, amazing things, and we had a lot of breakthroughs in science. Nowadays, we have these music artists that are talking about the most, designer clothes or, whore culture, and it's really sad. But, there's certain people that are benefiting off of keeping the people stupid and controllable. So you need to reject that and take back control into your own hands.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have said it so eloquently, but I gotcha. Thank you for saying that. And we've hit on your background. We hit some of the subjects that you have faced, some of the things that you're working on. Are there any future projects that you want to talk about?
Okay, so the fact of the matter is that yes, and just to let you know, I'm actually homeless right now because of I've been locked out from, and even though a lot of the issues that I work on, like the wrongfully incarcerated, which I'm still working on, I think I think October 2nd, is that today?
Yep.
There is actually
October 3rd.
October 3rd, yeah. Yesterday was wrongful incarceration day, so I had my partners actually doing something in New Jersey and also in Pennsylvania, right, the most important swing state in the nation. But all of these, right, I do work with the wrongfully incarcerated, I do work with people with disabilities. We got something coming up for them. I do work with people that are in public housing. Actually, I just got off the, I was just talking earlier with the parents of Gavin Centrone, whose death caused the resignation of the CEO of NYCHA and vice president of the GOP. Hopefully we can actually, I'm saying, we need real help. We need the press access and stuff like that. We need the party resources to help us lift these issues. And even though a lot of these issues seem like I would really be working with people on the left, right? People in poverty, people who are wrongfully incarcerated. The fact of the matter is they blackballed me. So I know that the Conservative Party is the most successful third party in New York State history. And, I really admire what they're doing. And I encourage you to, once again, I'm not saying that they're all right or all wrong, but you need to know what you're talking about. You need to really do more investigation and explore all your choices rather than let something that you saw on TV determine your thing. So what's the most important thing in the future is honestly the Rep My Bach program, which once again sits front and center. None of these things can be successful unless society itself, because it's like sports, right? People show up and they want to run for office and they think it's like playing like high school basketball. Wrong. It's like the NBA. People's careers, millions of dollars, right? The refs are getting paid off. And if you take a look at like the Tour de France, the fact of the matter is that these people, even though they're empowered, whatever, right? You take a look at the professional athletes, they're all using performance-enhancing drugs. Why? Because the fact of the matter is that everybody else is using it and nobody's stopping them. There's still millions of dollars being pumped in from the community saying, we don't care. We just want to see the game played. We don't care. There's millions of dollars. And you know what? Even those powerful athletes cannot prevent their competitors from using performance-enhancing drugs, even though everybody knows it's going on. Unless we as a community come together and start saying, you know what? We want to have a cleaner system. We're going to start investigating what's going on. We can never fix the system. So in the future, I really want to encourage more people to get involved, and I want to teach people how to empower themselves so that they don't have to give up and throw all of their support behind a candidate who really doesn't have their interests at heart, or just invest into, people want to just take care of a situation by throwing money at it, right? I donated to a candidate, I went to a protest, and I went home. That's how you assure that your issues will never be addressed.
And you hit some really hard topics out there and things that people don't publicly say because once again, it's going to get them blackballed. So I appreciate you bringing it out here, and especially here in Political Chit Chat because we try to have an open space and try to get the community out directly. This year we're in an election year, and this is going to be aired before the election. What do you think we could do to try to get more people involved this particular year?
Okay. Like I said before, people have to really learn how to empower themselves. They have to believe that their vote matters and counts. So get together. One of the things is that there's something called an assembly district, there's something called an election district. And assembly district is actually a manageable chunk, but election district is only 5 or 6 city blocks wide. And those election districts are right, your votes are, your election districts are tallied up together. If you can, and this information is freely available on At My Block. Actually, Gonzalo may be able to also, probably has this data as well too, right? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. There's independent, everybody has their own sets of data, and you shouldn't put all your faith into one basket, okay? Use At My Block, but also ask Gonzalo, ask around, diversify your sources, get together with people in your election district and say, you know what, we're gonna vote together as a team, and then watch on the news and see, how did you impact that small, take into manageable chunks and stop dreaming of fixing the nation by stopping one person, right? It's
a bigger
fantasy.
picture thing. It's a bigger picture thing.
Yeah. Focus on what you can control. Start with that.
That's beautiful. Just to break down a little bit more, an assembly district, I can't talk about the other areas, but the Bronx I know for sure. The Bronx has 11 assembly districts, I believe, and they're broken down further down to our electoral district, which you said 5-6 block radius. So those information, that data is used for the higher scale all the way to the presidential election to see, the data from there is used to say, well, this is where we're going to send people and this where. For me, I've always tried to go the opposite and say, look, you already know these people are here. I just told you 20%, 25, less than 25% of people vote in the mayoral elections years. So why go there? Why not go somewhere else and bring more people into the fold? That's been my ideology. And for me, besides the Board of Election as a party leader, I also believe in making your own database. You meet somebody, talk to them, get them involved in politics. If it takes one by one, guess what happens in a couple months, in a couple years? That one name turns into 300, 400, 500. And I'm not trying to be like overthrowing anybody, but that would be a step in the direction of changing maybe one assembly district after the other to make change within a county level. And I think I've proven that a little bit in my little neck of the woods.
If I could actually just comment on that, I have the first and only third-party independent candidate debates in New York City. That's on you can find that on the DGL7.com network. I've also done a lot of third-party stuff because a lot of times the party leadership of the Republicans and Democrats work together to control the narrative in ways that you don't really see. But out of all those, and I have more candidate interviews than any other YouTuber, I believe more activist interviews than another YouTuber. And Gonzalo Duran, as someone who's in the New York City scene, he's actually a strong leader in the third-party movement in a way that's really pioneer work and really impressive. And I'm not just saying that to be nice because I'm on this show. I really don't have much to lose. Like I said earlier, I've paid a deep price for truth-telling. But once again, props to your work. You are a pioneer and actually leader in with the things that you've achieved. But,
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I recognize that.
Thank you. And let me go a little full circle if you don't mind. When I came in the forefront into politics, I had to depend on independent media. You were one of the first people that interviewed me. So I'm coming back over here. And since that time, I like to think that in which you mentioned that I have made some changes in some aspects so that other people can make even bigger moves. And, if we're on that cusp sooner or later, I love to see our work make those changes soon.
Hey, I ain't stopping for nothing.
Quickly now, just because of time constraint, if you don't mind, is there anything that we haven't covered that you maybe want to throw out there real quick?
Go to dgf7.com. That's really where I have a lot of resources there. I have a networking space where I have electioneering tools, such as seeing, tracing the money. It's interesting to see how Curtis Lewa has spent his money and how Mamdani has spent their money. You can see that on the tools represented by Ralph Yazzo. You can actually also access the tools to see, compare how one district has changed, how the votes have changed. That's deeply studied by the consultants, which are not talked about. A lot of times when, if you go to help a candidate, meaning well, they'll actually have you do the low-grade work. They'll have you knock on the doors. They won't share the list of the doors with you, by the way, right? That's also sus. But you'll have an app. They'll have you knock on the doors. But the people that have donated money, the people that have voted several times, they're on a separate list. And the people, and I get it, right? I've owned my own businesses. You cannot throw your highest value, contacts out to who knows where to maybe work on those issues, right? So they're not wrong to do what they're doing either, right? There's not a bad guy and a good guy, but you need to stop letting them control you and get access to your stuff. So please, please sign up for my newsletter. That's a very important way for me to get in contact with you. Do not trust the algorithm to even promote Gonzalo, right? Sign up for his news. You got a newsletter?
Well, just for time constraint, I just want to say, everyone, thank you so much for being with us today. If you'd like to be on the show, please email me at gonzaloduranyc@gmail.com to get to know me better. Feel free to check out my social media at Gonzalo Duran NYC. And until then, and as always, God bless you and God bless America.
Thank you. God bless.
Hello, everyone. This is Political Chit Chat, and I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. I look forward to talking to you about local and global politics with local politicians, activists, and community leaders. Check us out on Manhattan Neighborhood Network on Tuesdays at 8:30 on the community channels. If you'd like to be a guest, feel free to email me at gonzaloduranyc@gmail.com. If you'd like to get to know me better, feel free to check out my social media at Gonzalo Duran NYC. Until then, and as always, God bless you and God bless America.